Welcome back to Basin Motorsports. I'm Kanan, and I am the guy behind the scenes. Well, it is 2021. I just celebrated my 11th complete year on YouTube, and well, we're going to go forward with what we're doing this year. Alright, so the car behind me is the 1986 Ford Mustang Fox body that I pulled out of a field 2 years ago. And this thing was supposed to be a quick flip turnaround, and it kind of snowballed, right? My OCD took over, and I just really could not make this a quick flip without fixing all the little issues. Now, last year, obviously, COVID kind of really screwed things up for everybody, and I was planning to get this car done on April 1st. Thought it'd be pretty easy. I pulled the engine and transmission out literally before, I think it was right before like beginning of 2020, and well, I got it back in that, but never got anything else further. So right now I'm working on bodywork for this, and the goal is to, again, fingers crossed as the running joke, it'll be ready by April 1st. Back together, ready for sale. And I may take it to some car shows next year with a for sale sign on it. So the gray lady needs bodywork, vinyl wrapped, everything painted on the trim and door windows and quarter panels, sail panels. Interior put back in, obviously reassembled, and then some fresh parts in there to get it ready to go. But hopefully this thing will be for sale by April 1, 2021. So one of the other things I had mentioned for 2020 alone was get this garage cleaned up. Last year, before I took the gray lady apart, obviously I didn't have all these parts. I had this nice clean open area back here. And then I went to a junkyard, so I bought more parts. I bought more other stuff, and a lot of this stuff needs to be cleaned out. So the parts here, the hood, the fenders, and a lot of this other stuff will go back to the 86. That will get that cleaned out. My goal is to sell off every other part I have available, and then I'm going to kick a lot of this other junky stuff to the junkyard. I've got a lot of other parts in here, radiators, some other fixes, and everything else, so that needs to go. Vinyl wrap will be going, and I'd like to get this really cleaned up and back to a very nice looking shop. So concerning the Widefox here, this next year really I'm not going to do a lot to it. I have a lot of carryover things that kind of are irritating little things that I'm going to fix. I want to keep this as a running car, not have it down into parts multiple times over the years. So one big shot, I'm going to take out all the interior. I will put in the Basin Motorsports 4-point roll bar that will go in the back. I'm also going to add rear speakers in or replace those. I left them in there, some older ones, and they end up being kind of duds. So I'm going to replace those with some ones for the deck lid. I'm going to fix some lingering issues inside. I'll probably repaint the dash and really just kind of get this thing back to where I really enjoy driving it again. It's a little too race car for me. I'm going to say older, but at the same time, I don't have a lot of time to take this to a track, and it's a very focused car for a pro touring build, right? It's got upgraded brakes, it has upgraded suspension, it's got some big, fat, juicy tires on the front and back, and the 315s. This thing is really pro touring, racy kind of build, and it's not a great car for long trips. Town is fine, but I'm going to try and get back into a little bit more comfort going forth. Now, I talked about doing a metal wide body on this, and I'm thinking I bought the quarters and the fenders for it to be able to cut up and do all that. I may actually buy another car, and thinking about maybe buying kind of a V8 that's pretty haggard, right? You know, I always like to buy the cheap ones and completely tear them down to nuts and bolts and put them back. If I did that, I'll probably just buy one that looks pretty rough, and then just basically cut it up and build a metal wide body at it rather than redoing this one again. And honestly, I'm 50-50 on actually selling this. I enjoy it in that, but like I said, it's almost built a little bit more for stuff that I never get to go do. So if I could take this to like in the CAM-T class for SCCA or the good guys to go race it, this is a fantastic car for that. I don't know that I have time for that, or I will have time next year. I may end up selling it and then just building something as a replacement as for fun. And I also have another car that I'm going to do is more of a grand touring theme instead of a pro touring theme. Now, speaking of the other car, if you guys saw on the channel about a month ago, I brought home a 1987 Porsche 944. So initially when I bought it, I was planning to bring it home because it was listed as a burned engine. I expected a complete loss under the hood in that. What I actually got was a complete car that had been in an area that had a forest fire in September in Oregon, in Phoenix, Oregon, which is over off of I-5, kind of southwest, I guess Oregon you would call it, or at least I'll call it that. So I originally planned on basically gutting this thing out and putting in an LS into it and building that as a series on it. When I got it, tracked down the original owner of this, or the previous owner to it, and talked to him on a lot of what's in it, what's good about it. It's actually supposed to be a really good, well-maintained running car, other than it's sat for 3 years. So it needs, obviously, the fuel system gone back through. It needs really just cleaned up, kind of like everything else I've got. You know, it needs to be stripped down a little bit, fixed up, and gone through. He told me all about the maintenance on it, everything else. So what I think I'm going to do on the Porsche, rather than immediately go to an LS swap, is I'm going to go through the series of one. I'm going to vinyl wrap it. You can see that, you know, the paint's coming off of it. So I will clean this up, vinyl wrap it. That will be a complete series for it. And then I'm going to go through the stage of what to look for and to how to repair everything, going up through kind of like the barn find scenario. When I started looking into Porsche stuff and getting into groups on Facebook, what I found was that, you know, these things have been sat. It's an interference engine, so it's got a timing belt. If that timing belt for any reason slips and usually end up, you know, it's not maintained, it breaks. What ends up happening is valves kiss pistons and it destroys the engine. So it seems like these things weren't exactly the most popular. They weren't exactly the most expensive. So a lot of times, like other things, like Mustangs, they get set to the side and I'll get back to them eventually. Well, they don't. And then they get sold off and somebody gets them and they start the process. So I'm going to do a complete series of repairing this thing, getting it back together, the vinyl wrap and everything else. So this will be a completely new build series. And then maybe in 2022, if I feel like it, I'll put the LS into it, or at the end of next year. But I want to get this back running as a running, driving, well-oiled machine, basically, in stock form, and go through that, clean it up, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So now before I get the Porsche brought into the garage, the gray lady will be done, and then I'm going to put in a 2-post lift. So that's kind of one of my big last goals for this next year. I've got the brand picked out. I already talked to a rep from that company that reps the brand, so that may be, of course, that'll probably be like April or May, but I'm going to put a 2-post lift in here. When we built this garage 6 years ago, I already had the concrete poured in here, so it's got a 6-inch slab where the lift will go. It's only a 4-inch requirement for the lifts to put in a 9,000-pound lift in here that will, you know, obviously lift and store cars, and it can lift a Suburban, which are 6,000 pounds. So it'll pull those up, at least to get the tire changes off or to do oil changes or whatever else. So that'll be one of my big last goals of the year, to be able to do that, is to put a 2-post lift in here. That'll make it a lot easier to do Porsche maintenance too, because those have a transaxle in the back. The 944s don't actually have a transmission like you would expect. They have a transaxle in the back, kind of like a Corvette. All right, so probably the last thing to talk about really of what's going forth in 2021 is I'm going to change up kind of the business plan a little bit. So I've always thought, I never really wanted a website or anything else to deal with in parts in that. I had mentioned previously that I got furloughed from my, I guess you call it my 9-to-5 corporate job in May. So I was on unemployment most of the year. Come mid-October, that finally got cut. I got laid off. So for a month and, well, 2 months now, really. For 2 months now, I have been, you could say unemployed. I'm going to call it self-employed because it's not like I'm just sitting around. So 2021, I'm going to diversify, I guess, income as it was. So the YouTube obviously pays a little bit every month, but not a lot. So the last 5 years, I've only done foxbody Mustangs, right? I've done 3 of them. I did the 92 that got wrecked, did the 80 wide body known as Widefox, and then I picked up the 86. So the 86 will be sold. Widefox is a little bit of, I guess, updates, and I don't know about selling it yet. Haven't decided on it. And then I'm going to diversify in the content. That's where the Porsche comes in. I wanted a cheap project. I've always liked the 944s. For like 20 something years, I have a whole story on, or I worked at a Porsche dealership. That's where I started getting into the 44s, and I really just now I'm just going to get back to that. So the YouTube thing, honestly, I feel like I have stagnated. Doing fox body stuff, I think I've reached the point where I can without going to the metal wide body, which would be different than most everybody else. But I feel like I'm getting left behind in that arena. Outside of that, my writing still continues. I'm going to put together a website because I have a lot of article ideas that nobody wants to buy. So guess what? I'm going to use them for myself and make some money that way to do other things. I'm going to look into being dealers for other stuff. Amsoil, I'll probably join with them to do some oil stuff. I'll look at other oils like Royal Purple or anything else, competitors that I don't have to keep stock, but I can sell stuff and make a little bit of money. And then outside of that, our farm did really well in 2020. 2021, I only expect it to probably be higher up, and we have a YouTube channel for it. So of course that makes some money elsewhere. So I'm not really sure. Was 2020 bad? Kind of bad, but not necessarily. 2021, will it be the same? I don't know, but I'm gonna try some different things going forth, and who knows? I may clean out all of the shop of parts and cars and everything else and completely go a different direction, or I thought about just completely stop YouTubing altogether. Like I said, I feel stagnant. I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. And I'll tell you, the stuff that makes money month over month is none of this new stuff. None of it. The oldest stuff I have, or something a year ago, is probably one of the best ones I have right now going forth, getting views, and it's nothing I'm going to do again. So who knows? But with that, I'll let you know as we go through 2021 what it's going to be, what's going to be sold, what's going to stay, and will it be the end? I don't know, but we'll see you next time.